Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. Now, I've woken up, I did the summon stream, I did the live stream coverage, so I am as conscious as I'm gonna be today, and I have now had time after summoning to, sit down and use the two new units, so I could make this should you summon video. And I think this video in particular is going to be very impactful because it is the second anniversary, right? This is a branded 2-year anniversary part 1 banner, but it doesn't fall in line with what people are expecting because it is the second half of a previous meta. And I'll go over that more in detail in a video probably tomorrow. But today we're only talking about how good they are, what do they do, and why I think you should or should not summon for them. So, one, their art style is very, very striking because it is from the light novel artist, and it's very interesting. It's very different, which I don't mind different because, we've had all these same kind of cookie cutter art styles come in, and while they're very cute, yes, this is very different, and I'm okay with different. Their in-game sprites as well have this very cool sword effect on both of them, and it's very, very good looking. But what do they do? If you didn't want to watch the live stream coverage and you haven't looked it up at all since they dropped, we will talk about them now. We'll start with Shizu. She is a space magic dealer. She uses a sword, so Space Reamer's sword, you can pull it off him. She's on Wielder of Magic, World of Fantasy, Heart of a Hero, and Fount of Wisdom. She is an attack growth character, and if the good thing to note, if you have her maxed out, she does break the 4,000 barrier for attack. So character status attack, if she was at 120, she would be just over 4,000, which would make both of these units the very first ones that would break that 4K barrier, which I've been waiting for now 2 years. We've seen power creep happen, we've seen skills get more expensive and more powerful, stats get higher and higher, but not quite to that 4K mark. Now we are, and that's probably because they're part of the anniversary. But she is a single target space magic damage dealer, 490%. If you got her to level 120, she would be 510, just like most of the other single targets. She has no additional effect on her ults, she is pure damage. Her first skill is a skill reset, but on a battle unit. Because most of the time, it comes on the Protector, right? The Vengeance Velzard, the Earthbending Maru, the Dark Veldora, those Protectors reset your skill costs. And they happen out of turn, right? Because you do it before you use orbs, before you use other skills, you reset them. Well, here, it doesn't quite work the same way. So, that when you click a skill, you have 6 skills lined up. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they have numbers on them of which is going to activate first. And a lot of the times, based on how you activate that, the orbs will change. Like, if you have an orb change here and an orb change here, and you want, like, this one changed, specifically, you got to use that skill first, and then the skill kicks in. There's an order of operations to using the skill. This, however, this cost reset must be used by itself before using any other skills. So, if I were to go into a fight, and I'll probably throw a screenshot of it or something, or a little video up here, but going into a fight, if I have all these skills that are higher than their normal cost, and I activate this specific skill for Shizu, and the other ones, it doesn't reset them before using their skill point cost. So, if I have an orb change that costs 45 and I want it back down to 25, if I use Shizu's skill and then the orb change, it'll reset back down, but it's still going to cost 45. It's going to take 45 points away from my pool when you think it should have taken 25 because I activated this skill first. So what you have to do is you have to use this skill by itself, no other skills, and then, after it's activated, then use something else. And then the cost will be reset. So it's kind of funky. This is the first time we've had a battle unit that resets costs, so there's going to be a little bit of growing pain, a little bit of thinking to do about it, but once you get into the habit of it, it'll make sense. And then on top of that, she gives all skill points 10% skill point increase for 1 turn. You can only use this skill once, just like the Hero's Rewind. Only a one-time effect. So after you do it, it's gone. But at the same time, it costs 0 points. So it's literally no skin off your bones. Her second skill increases all magic allies' ult gauge by 30% and then lowers ult damage resistance on everybody by 25% for 2 turns. Now, this is a good skill, right? It's ult rushing for everybody that's magic, so it's not quite as limited as the ones that are like the highest attack unit, or some other kind of fact like that. It is magic, and there are a lot of magic units in the game now. And then the ult resistance down for 25% is good. It's obviously not as good as like Violet's or Raphael's, but those are big time, big cost skills, so they need to have a better effect. And this lasts for 2 turns, which is good. But after I was really good on this kit when I first saw them, but after using them, I find myself not finding a use for this Shizu. And maybe that's just because she's brand new and she's been out for 7 hours roughly. And I've only used her for about an hour and a half or so. But she's meant to be used on a burst team, right? So green burst team, orange burst team, any burst team, because she's not limited to what kind of orbs she needs to be put with. So you can put her on any team. So blue, you could put her on the trainee team, but they're physical, right? The Summer Memories team is physical. You could put them on the Vengeance team, who is magic, but Velzard already resets skill costs. And ult damage is not really a necessary thing for you to worry about, because you're not doing traditional big-time damage with the Vengeance team. You're banking on Vengeance to kill. So maybe not make the most sense there. The Frey team, she's on World of Fantasy, but again, that team is physical. And so no one is going to get the magic, the ult gauge increase, because they're not magic. And then you have like the Toa team, which is fire, which is physical. So the light Shizu team, like the old bride team, they're physical. So in reality, there's not a lot of places you can use this, right? Because I'm not going to bring this unit onto a stacking team, because I have stacking units that have much higher skill cost skills, but also much more power. So, and she just wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense. Like, I'm not going to swap her out for Violet or Raphael or something like that. No. I'm going to use the units that have a higher cost because I have so many more points to play with and get bigger return out of it. And then the skill cost and the skill reset, like, yeah, that's cool, but on a stacking team, like, it's built for that. Like, you get so many points off blue orbs that a lot of the time, the high cost of those orb changes is offset, right? I don't need the one time for my orange orb change to be back down to 25 in place of some other big time buff that would make me hit damage cap for Jubilee or something else. So I'm really not... There's not a lot of places you can use the Shizu right now, except for her own team and maybe like the Wind 2.0 team, which is not a good team in general, in my personal opinion. If you feel differently, okay. But there's just not a lot of burst magic teams right now that are viable in endgame content, because all of them are stacking, right? All of them are stacking, or all of them are burst physical. So Shizu could be good later down the line when we get more magic characters that are, or just magic characters in general. But like, I'm not gonna put her on the Konosuba team, right? They're magic, cool. I'm not gonna put her on the Vengeance team. This team, she works fine. The Goddess of Destiny team, she could work very well. She's on World Fantasy, which means that Sokka does get the extra 5% from her. So it could work, and that team would actually run very efficiently with the Shizu. But that's one team, right? That's one additional team besides her own meta. I don't know if that's good enough to warrant summoning right now. Maybe in the future, but not now. Continuing on, her Valor trait, she lowers the enemy's ult gauge if they have a full ult gauge. So we saw that a lot happen in Ranked Valor last season, where you would have a EX ult and then someone would come in and it not be an EX ult anymore. It can be annoying. It's kind of specific though. And then her actual trait, is skill points every 2 turns, which is a decent trait. It's not the best trait, but it's also far from the worst kind of trait. But we have Ranga on the meta, who is buffing your skill point gain on oranges. So, do you need the skill points? Honestly, maybe. Maybe not. Could be. Again, she gets the extra 20% alt damage when you get her to 120. And then she gets extra Pierce Power with Rimuru on the team, and she buffs other team stats. So she is a team buffer. Yeah, I think this Shizu may be a little too limited right now for me to really, really like her. I like her art. I like her in-game model. These effects, though, are not totally relevant, though, for now. That was 10 minutes of talking about her. Okay, let's move on to the new Hinata, who I think is the better of the 2 units, even though she may be even more limited. She is Water, Magic, Wielder of Magic, World of Fantasy, Shizu's Will, and Warrior's Mind. She also uses a sword, so you could take it off the old Water Hinata if you have gear for her made, and just put it on this one, and you'll be set to go. Her AoE, 315%, is higher than a normal AoE, right? Normally, it's a 300%. Let's try and find someone else. Yeah, this Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, 30%, 300%, 300%. This Hinata is at 315, which will then go up another 20% if she's 120, to 335. So she will do good damage. She'll do more damage than the others in a vacuum, so that's nice. But she's, damaged, so she doesn't have an extra effect. Her first skill increases all allies' all attribute attack by 50%. That is a very, very complicated way of saying you get all the typing buffs. 50% light buff, 50% dark buff, 50% space buff, all of them. You get all of them. So no matter what unit you are, you get your buff, right? She could be on a rainbow team with dark, light, wind, space, earth. All of them will get a buff because they are all part of their meta, and she gives all 7 buffs to them. So whatever one applies to them, they will get. And that is really good, because it means that instead of having one specific limited support unit, like Light Leon or something like that, or, Space Film is the damage dealer, but if you wanted to use her for the space buff, you could. This Hinata covers that, and on top of that, it's only a 40 cost skill. Normally, these big-time 50% buffs cost 55 points, so it's already 15 points cheaper, and it's giving the entire 7 typing element damage to anybody. So that makes her a really good support unit for almost any team. You don't have to put her on an orange team. You could put her on a dark team. If you don't have, Dark Shinsha, you don't have that 70% dark attack, well, you have at least 50 right here. And it doesn't matter that, whatever, she's not dark. And then on top of that, because she's an AoE DPS, she gives herself Weakness Strike by 30%, which only applies if you're fighting a wind unit or a fire unit, or you're on the force that gets extra damage against whatever typing that she fits on. But that right there, this support is crazy because it's so good and it's so cheap for how big of a buff it is. Her second skill is like the Goddess of Destiny Sokka, where all the future orbs coming in are the same color. This time it's oranges. Oranges inherently don't give you a lot of gauge and skill points, except for alts, which, this meta is very much orange focused, so it does make sense. And it does eliminate a lot of RNG, so it's like, if you go into beatdown battle, turn 1 is a full hand of oranges, turn 2 you use Toa, and that's a whole hand of oranges, and then you use this skill, so turn 3 is a whole hand of oranges, and then maybe you have enough turn 4 to get another Toa, so that's like 4 turns straight of oranges right there. And the new Shinsha gets extra damage attack every time you use an orange orb, so if you can guarantee 3 or 4 turns of oranges, that's a lot of attack right there. So you could see a lot of damage, and that's a lot of alt gauge also, by the way. So she also does raise the gauge increase in general by 20% for 2 turns. This does stack with the extra damage that Shinsha does, the extra protection gauge that Shinsha does, the extra skill point gain that Ranga does. It will stack on top of that. So it is good. Her Valor trait seals attack skills, which also can be useful in certain scenarios in Valor Cup. And her actual trait is she gets extra ult gauge for the first 3 turns of the fight. So she'll start at 7, turn 2 she'll be at 14%, turn 3 she'll be at 21%. She's an EX unit, so any ult gauge is good for her. Even though the team is orange meta, and they get a lot of ult gauge. Like, this ensures that if she's up front turn 1 for the beatdown battle and you send that full hand of oranges, turn 2 she will have her ult. Guaranteed she will have her ult, because she'll have it left over from turn 1, and she'll get it turn 2. She also gets 20% again, so that puts her at 335% ult damage, the highest for an AoE that we've seen. And then she gets extra Pierce Power from Rimuru, and is a self-buffing unit. So she is very much damage-focused, with a pretty decent support for any team, right? You could take this and you could put on an Earth team, you could put it on a Light team, you could put on a Dark team, you can put on a Fire team, it doesn't matter. She will support them in some way, shape, or form. And then if they happen to run oranges, or they at least don't nerf oranges, then great. Then you can have a guaranteed hand come in and call it good. And once you use one of these skills, like one of them, it turns into 60, which means that if you have a 100 cost skill protector, then you could use these again, right? You could, in theory. But I think Hinata will have more use now because she is a generic support unit. And Shizu will maybe come into her own later down the line, just like how Wind Shizu kind of wasn't all that in a bag of chips when she first came out, but then she's become a very successful Jubilee normal damage nuking unit. Maybe it'll just take some time for that Shizu to come in. So, it is what it is. Do I think you should summon on this banner, though? No. Not really. This banner is up until November 28th. It is October 13th right now. We have a month and a half that this banner is going to be live. This will cover, the second part 2 of the anniversary banner on sometime in 2 weeks. This will cover the banner after that, and the banner after that. So by the time this banner actually goes away on the 28th, we'll have 1, 2, 3 other banners up that you can summon on, and you can then choose. Because honestly, if you don't have the new Shinsha and the new Milim, I honestly don't really think you need these 2 units. Like, Shizu, again, I made my thoughts clear. Hinata is the better of the 2, but also still a support unit or an AoE DPS. She'll be good for Jubilee, but the beatdown battle is single target, so if you don't have Milim and Shinsha, and you're not really enthralled by this Wielder of Magic meta as a whole, don't summon. Hold off, at the very minimum. Wait, because it's going to be up for a long time. And then once the other banners come out, you can make an informed decision and see what you want to do with your crystals. But for now, I think it's safer to stay put and save for that big-time banner at the end of the month, than summon on these 2, and then be kind of disappointed. Especially if you don't have Milim and Shinsha, right? These units are going to be good for the Jubilee coming up. I don't know how good they're going to be in the future. Hinata, I think, is a little bit more future-proof than Shizu, but we'll have to see how that plays out in the next couple months. So, free-to-plays, save. Whales, you already summoned. People on the fence, hold your horses, hold off, see what the future brings. We've got a long time that this banner is going to be here, so there's no need to rush right now. But that's it for me, guys. If you did summon, let me know how your summons went, but take it easy, and I will see you all later.